Outside the Red Box, insights into global research equipment distribution. Welcome to the Outside the Red Box podcast, your go-to podcast for insights on growing and scaling life science brands globally. Brought to you by Redbox Direct, we specialize in outsourced sales, distribution, and manufacturing for scientific instruments, with over 20 years of hands-on experience. Let's get started with today's episode.
Okay, so imagine this. You run a company and you sell something just incredibly complicated.
Right.
I'm not talking about, vacuum cleaners. I'm talking about high-end lab equipment, mass spectrometers, that kind of thing.
The kind of stuff where if you press the wrong button, you might accidentally create a black hole.
Exactly. Heavy, technical stuff.
Hmm.
And because the product is so technical, and your customers are, they're literally PhDs, you assume.
Yeah.
And it seems logical, right?
Totally.
That you need a highly technical person to sell it. You assume you have to hire a scientist.
It makes perfect sense on paper. You think my customer is a chemist, so I need a chemist to talk to them.
Yeah.
You want that peer-to-peer respect. It feels like the safest bet.
But that's the problem, and it's really the core of our deep dive today. So often, that safe bet is a total disaster.
Oh, absolutely.
You end up with someone who can explain the molecular weight of the product in, agonizing detail, but they just can't close a deal to save their life.
Yeah.
So today we're unpacking a really fascinating piece by writer Rory Gagan from Redbox Direct. It's titled, How to Transform Scientists into Salespeople.
And, just to set the stage here, this isn't just a simple how-to on sales. This is really a study on human nature. It's about whether you can take someone who's wired for the quiet, controlled precision of a lab,
Right.
and sort of rewire them for the chaotic, high-pressure, rejection-filled world of the sales floor. Is that transformation even possible?
That is the mission for today.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out if that alchemy can actually happen. Because, according to the source, the stakes are massive. We're not just talking about missed quota.
No, not at all. We're talking about the survival of the business. The source outlines these 4 key challenges for any employer in this space: hiring, training, managing, and mentoring. But it all starts with hiring. If you get that wrong,
Everything else falls apart.
everything.
So why is that first step so lethal, though? Why can't you just fix a bad hire with, say, really good training?
Because of the cost and, more importantly, the time. In high-tech sales, the sales cycle is long. The training period is long. You might spend 6 months onboarding someone, paying them a high salary, flying them out to seminars.
A huge investment.
A huge investment. And if you realize 6 months in that they just don't have the, let's call it the gene for sales, you haven't just lost money. You've lost time. You've lost territory. Your competitors have been eating your lunch while your scientist was, busy reorganizing their desk.
The source has this great analogy for what happens when you don't have a process for this.
Mm-hmm.
It calls that salesperson, the mismatched one, a lone ranger.
I love that visual. But it's really important to note they don't mean the cool, heroic Lone Ranger who, saves the town.
No, not at all. It's chaotic. It paints this picture of the Lone Ranger in the Wild West. They're out there totally unsupervised, using a ready, fire, aim approach.
Which is just terrifying for a business owner. Ready, fire, aim means they're firing wildly, they're missing targets, annoying potential customers, and just wasting ammunition.
And in this business, the ammunition, your leads, your reputation, is expensive.
So expensive.
So the source basically argues that to avoid this Wild West, you have to fix that very first step, who you let in the door.
Yeah.
You have to completely flip your thinking.
Right.
The trap, like we said, is thinking, I need a chemist to sell to chemists. But, play devil's advocate for me here. If I'm selling a $500,000 piece of equipment, don't I need someone who understands the science?
That's the fear, right? That's what keeps managers up at night.
Yeah. Won't a generic salesperson just embarrass the company?
But let's look at the reality. Who are scientists, fundamentally?
Researchers.
Right. They're professional learners. That's their job. If your product is designed well, if it's usable, a smart person can learn the technical specs, you can teach the science, you can teach the features, you can teach them how to run the demo.
But you can't teach personality.
Exactly. You cannot teach the hunger to close a deal. You can't teach the resilience to handle rejection. And that's the pivot. The source says the real secret isn't finding a technical clone of your customer. It's finding the right personality traits.
There's this funny line in the text about the Transformers, Optimus Prime.
Autobots transform and roll out.
Right. And the source says a lot of managers act like that. They hire a scientist, stand in front of them and just yell, Autobots transform and roll out, and somehow expect them to become a salesperson.
And as much as we might wish that worked, it doesn't.
The transformation doesn't happen because you command it. It happens because you selected for it.
Yeah.
You had to find the person who already had the potential to transform.
Precisely. We're looking for the right raw materials. You can't turn lead into gold, but if you find the right ore, you can refine it. And the source identifies 4 specific non-negotiable traits.
Yeah.
And if the candidate has these, you can turn them into a star. If they don't, no amount of technical knowledge is going to save them.
All right, let's get into these 4 traits. Because honestly, when I read the list, some seemed obvious. But the way you test for them it's actually really surprising. The first one is likability.
Which sounds fluffy, I know. Oh, they just need to be nice.
It does sound a bit like you're hiring a drinking buddy. And isn't that kind of a bias trap? I'm just going to hire people I want to hang out with.
It can be if you don't define likability in the context of sales. We're not looking for a best friend. We're looking for the ability to build immediate rapport. And there's a very specific and, frankly, a brutal test for this in the source.
The 30-minute rule.
The 30-minute rule. This one made me wince a little.
Me too.
It's tough. The rule is, if you don't warm up to the candidate in the first few minutes of the interview, literally, if you aren't enjoying the conversation by the 30-minute mark, they don't have it.
That seems incredibly harsh. What if they're just nervous? What if they're an introvert who takes a while to warm up? I know plenty of brilliant people who are awkward at first, but great once you know them.
And those people make fantastic researchers. They make great engineers. But in sales, you just don't have the luxury of a slow burn. You're often cold calling someone or walking to a trade show booth. You have 30 seconds, maybe 5 minutes to make a connection. If it takes a candidate 30 minutes to grow on you, that's a fail.
The source explicitly warns about the grow on you types.
Right. It says, watch out for people who grow on you after 30 minutes. They might be wonderful human beings, but in a sales context, that delay is fatal. If the hiring manager, who is actively trying to be nice, doesn't feel it, a customer definitely won't.
So that's a gut check. If you're not smiling and enjoying the conversation by minute 5, pass.
Hard pass. It's all about efficiency of connection.
Okay, trait number 2. This one feels a little more aligned with the scientist persona. Organization.
Yes, but we need to be careful here because lab organization is not the same thing as sales organization. A lab is a controlled environment. You follow a protocol. Step A, then step B, then step C. It's linear. Sales is. It's chaos. You have 50 leads, 3 are hot, 10 are cold. Legal is holding up a contract, and a client just canceled a demo.
So it's about juggling.
It's about pipeline management. And the source makes a really important point here. Organization is a skill that's learned early. We're talking high school, college. If someone is disorganized at 25 or 30, you are not going to fix them.
You can't parent them into being organized.
Exactly. You'll just fight a losing battle trying to get them to update the CRM or manage their pipeline. And in sales, if you can't manage the pipeline balancing those short-term calls with long-term strategy, you fail. It doesn't matter how charming you are.
So the source suggests asking specific questions to dig into this, not just, are you organized? Because everyone says yes to that.
Right. You have to ask, how do you manage your time? Or how do you juggle short-term and long-term goals? You want to hear about systems. I use Trello, or I time block my morning.
Or I have a specific flagging system for emails.
Yes, something. And what's the red flag answer?
Oh, I just keep it all in my head.
That's the one. Or I just go with the flow.
Going with the flow is code for I will forget to follow up on that lead.
Every single time. In sales, flow is just another word for leaking revenue.
Okay, moving on to trait number 3. This is where I think the scientist persona really clashes with the sales persona. Assertiveness.
The drive to win. The willingness to do what is needed to succeed.
And just to clarify, this isn't about being aggressive, right? We're not looking for that stereotypical used car salesman pushing a lemon on someone.
No, absolutely not. In high-end technical sales, assertiveness is about leadership. It's about control. It's the difference between waiting for the customer to call you back
And you calling them.
and you calling the customer to say, I have the info you needed. Let's schedule the next step. You're driving it forward.
I love the social test the source suggests for this. It's such a simple question. When you go out with your friends, who makes the arrangements?
It's brilliant, isn't it? Because assertive people are the ones saying, okay, we're going to this restaurant at 8:00. I made the reservation. Here's the plan. They lead the gang.
And if the answer is something like, oh, I usually just tag along, I'm easy, That's a problem.
In sales,
Yeah.
it's a huge problem because
Okay.
tagging along means letting the customer control the process. It means you're a passenger in your own deal. An assertive salesperson drives the interaction.
There's a darker side to this test too, though, the conflict test.
Yes. The question is, did you ever have a colleague let you down on a project? How did you deal with it?
Oof. That's uncomfortable.
It's supposed to be. You want to know if they confronted the issue? Did they go to the colleague and say, hey, this isn't acceptable, we need to fix this? Or did they just let it slide to avoid awkwardness?
Or just do the work themselves and resent it.
Which is what a lot of nice people do.
I feel like a lot of people would do that.
They do. And that makes them great team players in a lab. But in sales, you face conflict every day. Rejection, objections on price. If you can't tell a colleague they're slacking, how are you going to tell a potential client their budget expectations are unrealistic?
Yeah.
You need the person who runs toward the friction, not away from it.
So we need a likable, organized, assertive person. That brings us to the fourth trait, and honestly, this was the most insightful part of the entire document for me. It completely reframed how I think about negative emotions. The source calls it the need to finish tasks.
Or get things done-ness.
Which is a bit of a mouthful, but yeah, we know what it means.
We all know people who don't have this. They'll start 50 projects and finish 0. They're great at the idea phase and terrible at the execution phase.
But the indicator the source gives for this is so specific. It says people with this trait don't leave emails unresponded to.
It drives them crazy, and this leads to the anxiety factor.
This blew my mind. Because usually in an interview, if someone says they have anxiety or they get stressed easily, you mark that as a negative.
Totally. You think, oh, they can't handle the pressure.
Yeah.
You want someone calm.
Exactly. But the source flips that. It suggests you ask the candidate, how do you feel when you have too much on your plate and can't finish everything?
And the wrong answer would be what we think of as the healthy answer, right? I just prioritize and don't worry about it.
Yes. That's a mentally healthy human being.
But a bad salesperson. The right answer for this role is, it keeps me up at night. I hate it. I feel anxious until it's done.
That is wild. We are actively hiring for anxiety.
A very specific type of anxiety. We're hiring for the anxiety that comes from an open loop. You know that feeling when a song cuts off before the end? It itches.
Yeah.
These people feel that itch when a deal is pending or an email is unanswered.
And that anxiety is their fuel.
It's high-octane fuel. It's what makes them make that 10th phone call at 5:30 p.m. It's what prevents them from letting a deal stagnate. They need to close the loop to feel psychological relief.
So if it's too zen?
They aren't closing. Exactly. If they're totally chill about unfinished tasks, your sales figures will be unfinished too. You want someone who just cannot rest until the job is done.
So we have these 4 traits. But before we wrap this up, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, the stereotype. When I think salesperson, I think loud. I think backslapping. I think life of the party. I think extrovert.
And that is the biggest myth the source wants to bust.
Really?
Yes. The source says explicitly, do not get hung up on extroversion versus introversion.
But surely an extrovert is better suited. They love talking to people.
Not necessarily. The source points out that introverts can be incredible salespeople. They often listen better, they ask better questions, they can be more organized. The loudness isn't the skill.
But the source does give a very specific warning about one type of extrovert, the likable extrovert.
This is the false positive trap. You interview someone, they're super chatty, high energy, very likable. You think.
Born salesman.
Born salesman, the golden retriever candidate.
That's a perfect analogy.
Everyone loves them, they're wagging their tail, they're happy to be there, but, and this is a huge but, they often lack assertiveness.
So they can make friends, but they can't make money.
Exactly. They're great at the schmoozing part. They can have a 2-hour lunch with a client, have a great time talking about golf or kids, but they can't bring the deal to closure.
Why not?
Because they want to be liked more than they want to win. They don't want to ruin the new friendship by asking for the check.
And the source says these people often slip through the interview process.
Because they charm the interviewer, they're fun to talk to, but the source warns they are just unlikely to close deals. They lack that killer instinct, that assertiveness we talked about. So don't be blinded by the dazzle. You need the assertiveness and the organization underneath all that charm. Charm without process is just noise.
Okay, so let's bring this all together. We're looking at a formula here. It's not about finding a scientist. It's about finding a human with a very specific stack of software running in their brain.
Right. The formula is organization plus assertiveness plus that need to finish plus likability That's the star salesperson package.
And if you find that package in a scientist,
Then you have gold.
Yeah.
Because they have the brain power to learn the product,
All right.
and they have the personality engine to actually sell it.
but, and this is a crucial reminder from the source, finding them is just step one.
Correct. We can't forget the beginning of our deep dive. Hiring is challenge number 1. But you still have training, managing, and mentoring. You can hire the perfect personality, but if you just throw them into the Wild West without a map, they will still fail.
The Lone Ranger needs a map.
They need a map, they need a sheriff, and they need backup. The hiring piece is the foundation. You can try to train a disorganized person to use a CRM, but they'll hate it and eventually fail. You can train a passive person to ask closing questions, but they'll hesitate when it counts. If you get the raw material right, the training actually sticks.
It's really liberating, though, isn't it, to realize you don't need a clone of your customer to sell to your customer.
It opens up the talent pool completely. It stops you from hunting for unicorns, that rare person with a PhD in physics who also loves cold calling, and lets you focus on finding the right traits that you can mold.
Right.
It allows you to look at that postdoc researcher who's frustrated with the slow pace of academia, but who organized all the department conferences and hates leaving emails unread. That person is your next sales superstar.
I think my biggest takeaway is definitely that anxiety insight. I'm going to be looking at my own team differently now. Who's losing sleep over the unfinished project? That's not just a stressed employee. That might be a closer.
It really does force you to rethink negative emotions, doesn't it? We spend so much time in the corporate world trying to cure anxiety or eliminate stress. We want everyone to be calm and balanced and mindful.
Right. Breathing exercises and meditation apps.
But this leaves us with a really provocative question to chew on. In the context of high performance, is it possible that we're medicating away our best assets? If we view anxiety solely as a defect, we might be filtering out the very drive that leads to excellence. Where else in our organizations are negative traits actually the secret sauce for success?
Maybe the impatient manager is the only one driving real innovation.
Maybe the obsessive coder is the only one who catches the critical bugs.
That is a thought to dwell on. Maybe a little bit of unhappiness is the key to progress.
This might be.
Well, on that slightly anxious but highly productive note, that's it for today's deep dive.
Thanks for listening.
Catch you next time.